Hey guys, what's up? It's Charlie here, and today we're going to be looking at 10 crazy jobs kids actually have. So these are a collection of really bad and dangerous jobs, but some of these are really good jobs which might make you very jealous. And these aren't old jobs from history or anything like that, these are happening right now. And guys, be sure to like the video and subscribe and comment I subscribed and I will reply. So coming in at number 10 we have spy. So I'm sure you guys have all heard of criminals hiding in plain sight. Well, this is like a very extreme version of that. Basically in 2012 the US government brought down a Russian spy ring after investigating them for 4 years. And what they revealed the spy ring did wasn't too shocking like James Bond or whatever. It was just the regular stuff like gaining military secrets and knowledge of how the government chooses to run the country. But one really crazy discovery they did make was on how the spies got the knowledge. So it turns out that the spies were kids of older Russian spies. And ever since the kids have been young, they've been trained to be a spy. They were given a fake identity with a fake name and sent to the best American schools where they learned many skills and how to speak many languages. And after that, they get jobs in the government because of their great schooling, and because they'd started becoming spies when they were kids, they had a spotless background, unlike their parents. And these kids had a really tough time doing this because a lot of them were going through identity crises and depression because they had to lie and say they were somebody else for their whole life. And honestly, even though these kids were spies, I still feel bad for them because they didn't even get a say in it. So coming up next is bullfighter. So this one is gonna be controversial. So to some people, bullfighting is an art, but some people think it's cruel and hate it. And matadors who kill bulls in bullfights risk their lives every day. And because of that, they get paid a lot. In fact, sometimes up to $400,000 just for one bullfight. Damn, sign me up. I'm just kidding guys, don't get triggered. But yeah, bullfighting does involve a lot of knowledge about the bull's movements and how they're gonna respond to your actions. And this takes a while to learn because you have to know it. Otherwise, you could make a mistake. And when you make a mistake at work, it's probably annoying, but not the end of the world. But in bullfighting, a mistake means death. So you need to learn the skills in depth, meaning you have to start at a very young age. And most bullfighting schools accept students as young as 6 years old, but most kids don't graduate because they get injured and get put off. But if you do make it as a bullfighter, you can be paid handsomely, as long as you don't mind a lot of people being very pissed off at you. So next up we have CEO. So most jobs on this list are either very dangerous or very bad, but this is one of the good ones. So believe it or not, this 12-year-old kid here named Callum is a multi-millionaire. Why? Well, it's 2016, have a guess. He makes apps and he's been doing it since he was 9, but he's 12 now and he's made 2 apps which he sold to Google for $8.5 million. And his dad actually taught him how to code, which is how he knows how to make the apps. I mean, damn, if I was a dad, I'd want a piece of that. And what's this kid spent his millions on? Well, so far he's bought 4 Ferraris which add up to $1 million, even though he won't be able to drive them for another 4 years. But yeah guys, if you were a child CEO, what would you spend your money on? Honestly, when I was 12, I don't think I even knew what a Ferrari was. But coming up next we have soldier. So this one is very dangerous and actually pretty sad. So all over the world, kids are being misled and recruited as soldiers, or kidnapped and forced to be soldiers for countries' armies or smaller rebel groups all around the world. And if you thought the spies one was bad, well, this one is even worse, because these kids really do risk their lives every day, and over 100 kids die at war per day. And when I say kids, I don't mean young adults. Some kids that are made into soldiers are as young as 11 years old. And even though this is so insane and sounds rare, this is surprisingly common, and right now over 200,000 child soldiers are fighting all over the world, mainly in African countries and Afghanistan and the rest of the Middle East, but in some other countries too. And not only do these kids risk dying from war, but even if they do survive, they're still scarred for life. So coming up next we have fireworks factory. So in India, kids are allowed to drop out of school at the age of 12 and get work, and a lot do, because you have to pay for school there because the country's very poor. So if you can't pay for school, then you need to get a job, and that's pretty hard too because there's not many of them. But one factory which is a ton of Indian kids' last resort is called Siavakasi, which is the world's largest fireworks producer with over 800 factories, mainly in India. And these kids don't follow any safety rules or regulations, and they assemble fireworks with their bare hands, which involves mixing chemicals which are really poisonous and sometimes acidic so they can corrode your skin. And these chemicals in their hands cause burning, scaled skin and other health issues, and even sometimes death because of poisoning. And because of their lack of safety and cheaply made factories, a lot of fires break out which cause huge explosions and kill loads of kids, which is obviously really messed up that fireworks companies do this, but they don't even see it as that bad because it's pretty normal in India. So next up we have matchstick makers. So this is another one of those really dangerous jobs that I was talking about before. Basically in some parts of the world, but mostly Asian countries like India. As I said before, kids are hired by fireworks factories, but very similarly to that, kids are also hired to work in match factories. And kids who do this are called match dippers because their job is basically to dip matches, a chemical called phosphorus which causes a ton of bad stuff to you if you touch it, such as yellowing of teeth, hair loss, and phossy jaw, which is a type of bone cancer. And it also makes teeth rot and come out. and even causes some kids to die because they breathe it into their lungs. And these kids can be around 11 years old and they sometimes have to work a 16-hour day. And this one is so messed up because they're touching that phosphorus all day, which is slowly killing them. And touching phosphorus that much is apparently worse than smoking crack every day. So coming up next we have toy tester. So this is one of those really good jobs that I was talking about before, and you guys are going to be so mad at your parents after hearing this one because the chances are they didn't sign you up to become a toy tester. So some toy companies who want to test out their toys get kids to play with them, and the kids then give them feedback before they release a toy. And some parents want to use their kids as a cash cow, so they hire them out to test toys for companies. And I mean, that's awesome because as kids you probably play with toys anyway, so why not get paid too? But then again, I hope the kids get the money and not the parents, seeing as they're doing all the work, because they get paid quite a good amount, seeing as all they're doing is playing with toys. Because the toy companies are so rich, and that means the average wage of one of these kid toy testers is around $2,000 per toy. And you usually get to keep really expensive toys before they're even released. So if any of you guys have kids, then get them a job as a toy tester and they'll thank you later. Or who knows, maybe you guys could pretend to be a kid to get this job, because this job for kids is better than most adults' jobs. So next up we have tobacco field. So most of the bad jobs on this list have been in developing countries, and the good jobs have been in America and the Western world. However, this job is probably very close to home, because a study in 2016 found that a lot of kids actually work in tobacco fields in America, specifically in Kentucky, Virginia, Texas, and North Carolina. And even though nicotine poisoning isn't as bad as phosphorus poisoning from before, it can still be very bad, and the kids who work in the field say they often experience headaches and get sick really easily. And even though this isn't legal, some nicotine farmers still do this, and that causes kids to face the effects of tobacco at a very young age. And they're not just exposed to nicotine, which can give them cancer and eventually kill them, they're also exposed to the chemicals which are used to kill bugs on the plantations, which can be really harmful to them too. And if they don't die, they usually end up developing learning or physical defects as they grow up. So guys, think twice next time you light up your next cigarette. So coming up next we have miners. So this one is mainly in Tanzania in Africa, and you guys all know that Africa has a lot of gold mines which are usually owned by rich Americans, and most of these mines are in Tanzania. And when I say gold, you probably think of luxury and jewelry, but if you ask a child miner what they think of gold, they probably think of pain, hard work, and death, because these child miners earn quite a lot of money. Well, not really, it's a lot to them because they're so poor, but you still can't feed a whole family with it. But because they make more money than most kids, they have to work 24-hour days sometimes, and also often die because of the badly put together mines and the lack of safety gear, and sometimes even lack of basic clothing. And if they don't die from falling in the mines, lots of kids die from health problems later in life. For example, mercury poisoning and lung problems from inhaling the dust and dirt in the mines. So next up we have cartels. So we all know how dangerous it is to work for a cartel as an adult when you have control and you know what you're doing, but it must be even worse working in a cartel as a kid. And believe it or not, this actually happens. And because these kids are low ranking, they're usually seen as cheap and expendable, which means they get the most dangerous jobs, such as being lookouts for nearby police and even carrying out assassinations on rival drug dealers. And to make sure they don't have to pay the kids that much money, they usually try and get them addicted to cheap drugs, so instead of valuable money, they can pay them with the cheap drugs. And a lot of these kids even get killed by rival cartel members because they're so vulnerable and never protected. And even though they are doing crimes, it's really sad that they get killed because these kids are very heavily manipulated into joining cartels. And that just about wraps up this video. Check out the poll in the top right corner and you guys can vote for the craziest job. For me, it's being a soldier because that is just so dangerous. But as always, thank you guys for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and if you haven't already, what are you waiting for? Subscribe.